Roughly $1.25 billion. That is how much Duke Energy customers will be overpaying for electricity over the next 10 to 15 years. Our next guest writes that we can thank North Carolina law along with Governor Roy Cooper for the higher bills that are coming with these long-term solar energy contracts the Duke has been forced to accept. Don Vaart is a senior fellow with the Locke Foundation. During the McCrory years, he was the secretary of the Department of Environmental Quality. You were also the state's energy policy advisor. So, in other words, you know your stuff. Welcome to the show.
Well, thanks.
Don, first of all, why is solar booming in North Carolina?
And that's a great question. It is also slightly complicated, but the short answer is it is booming in North Carolina because of government subsidies, both state and federal. And North Carolina had more subsidies and more interpretations of federal law that were amenable to solar than any other state.
I come from Arizona, so one would think, well, gee, the desert, maybe Arizona, maybe Texas, maybe California would be leading the country in solar power and solar plants, but North Carolina is right up there.
Arizona actually has a better, what we call, solar resource. In other words, the sun shines there more often. And so that your question makes sense. But North Carolina, due to North Carolina law that was passed in 2007 or 8, decided that they were going to have the taxpayer subsidize much of the growth. They did that because they didn't want all of these costs to rest with the ratepayer. You would have seen dramatic increases in our rates had not some $2 billion worth of this investment come from the taxpayer instead. So the taxpayers are on the hook for about $2 billion or more. But there were other interpretations that the state has made, specifically of federal law, that are also very, very attractive to solar plants. So much so that North Carolina now is the #1 state in this federally qualified definition of solar and solar plants. And what that means is that our utilities have to buy the power that comes from them, and they have to be put in these long-term contracts that are very profitable.
So what you're saying, it sounds like to me, is that the solar industry is not growing just naturally based on market dynamics here in North Carolina. It's essentially propped up by subsidies and laws that make it very favorable to operate.
Insofar as state and federal mandates not being natural, you're correct. If they were gone, you would see them stop. You would see the expansion stop or slow down dramatically. And of course, that's the topic of an email that we know was sent by the head of one of the largest solar companies here in North Carolina to Governor Cooper himself, appealing to the governor to try to force Duke into going back and taking an outdated interpretation of this federal law.
Here's what's fascinating. First of all, I would encourage folks to read your piece published at carolinajournal.com. The headline, "Thanks to Solar Power Deals, Your Electric Bill is Higher." One of the things you write, Don, is that if people want to somehow say, oh, that darn power company, my bill is too high, actually Duke had been sounding the alarm about a couple of things, and one of them was the higher bills.
For 2 years prior to this year, Duke had been recognizing that these old contracts that they had signed and that were going to be in place for 15 years were very disadvantageous to the ratepayer. And what they were trying to do was get the Utilities Commission to change the interpretation of this federal law. And ultimately, it's our state legislature that stepped in and made that action. And that became House Bill 589. And I won't go into all those things, but there were because of the changed interpretation of this federal law, the estimates were that customers were going to save $850 million going forward under this new interpretation.
So are you telling me that the electric bill that Duke customers are getting in the mail and will continue to receive going forward actually could be lower than what they're going to receive?
It would. In fact, right now, Duke was saying, right now we're already overpaying some $1 billion, and they wanted that to stop. Because of HB 589, you're exactly right. You were going to see a drop in your bills going forward. Unfortunately, that didn't happen.
Now, the folks at Duke also had been trying to get folks to pay attention to them because they were a little bit concerned about what's termed the stability of the electric grid and how that relates to renewables and solar power in particular. What's the concern there?
Well, it's pretty intuitive to understand that when the sun shines, these solar plants pump out the electricity, and the rest of the generating system, has to drop back. When it's cloudy or when the sun doesn't shine for whatever reason, it reverses. And in fact, during the day, that goes on quite a bit.
Kind of a seesaw effect.
Kind of a seesaw effect. It's very hard on the other combustion turbines, but it's also very hard on the grid itself, because as you can imagine, those need to be balanced for us to have a constant supply. So what Duke had said was, look, it was fine when we first started this. We had some play in the system, and we could absorb these new intermittent generating plants. But we're at the end of that, and so going forward, if we add more, you're going to risk an unstable grid, or we're going to have to spend a whole lot of money to accommodate these increased growth in solar. So they brought that up as well. Again, going forward, I think we're still I think some of their concerns are going to be realized.
You mentioned that the General Assembly at one point had gotten involved and was taking steps to sort of rein in some of these long-term expensive solar contracts. But then Governor Roy Cooper got involved in this. Help us understand what role he played.
So the bill got passed, and they had these consumer protections built in, namely that going forward, these rates were going to be competitively determined, and there wouldn't be as many of them signed. That wasn't going to be beneficial, particularly to the solar industry, and they appealed to Governor Cooper. Apparently, according to the reports from a news agency at WBTV, Governor Cooper then withheld or used as leverage a permit Duke needed for another project for the pipeline to force Duke into signing a settlement that essentially undid those protections that the legislature put in HB 589.
Wouldn't an action like that generate a whole lot of questions by all sorts of people involved in this?
Obviously, it's pretty complicated. I'm having trouble explaining it now.
You're doing a good job.
And so there is a lot of misinformation out there. Some people think that the little rider that's on your power bill is the only amount that we pay for solar. That's not true. That's only for one facet of of one of the laws. The overwhelming majority of the additional costs are buried in your rate, and that's unfortunate.
Now, there is a legislative action. There's an investigation going on of several different things, including these questions?
Exactly. And so if it turns out that the reporter from WBTV was correct, that there really was extortion, if you will, being applied to Duke, then that's very serious indeed. And the legislator has taken the historic step of actually hiring investigators. If it turns out that Duke had to sign under duress, I think that settlement ought to be nullified.